My name's Anita Daher. I am a Canadian author of books primarily for young readers. I live in Manitoba, in the city of Winnipeg, which is very close to the heart of New Iceland. Today is National Tell a Story Day. So in celebration of that and of my just released new book, I thought I would tell you about the inspiration behind one of my characters. The new book is called Butter and Pandemonium. It is a sequel to Peanut Butter and Chaos. Now, in these books, which are fantasy, magical elements, there's lots about Iceland in there, and we delve into Nordic mythology as well. In these books, and particularly in the second book, which takes a much deeper dive into magic, we learn about Loft. Loft is an evil sorcerer, and he's going to cause my main character some difficulties. The inspiration behind Loft comes from our Icelandic folk tales, and I learned about Loft through the Icelandic Roots database, which is also mentioned in these books. He was once a student studying to be a priest. He was very smart. He was arrogant, and as the time went on, he was not very nice. He was evil, but not as evil as somebody else I'm going to mention. So Loft is based on Loftur, who was this student who became a sorcerer. He wanted to be the most powerful sorcerer who ever lived. The problem was, there was somebody who had lived a couple of hundred years before him, who is described in the Icelandic Roots database as the evilest man who ever lived in Iceland. Now, this evilest man lived in the 1500s. He started out as a bishop, but he ended up delving into magic, black magic, because there was also, good magic, but this was black magic that he went into, and he created what's known as the most powerful book of dark spells. I won't give you the Icelandic name, but we can call it the Book of Power. Now, Loftur decided that he wanted to get his hands on this Book of Power because he wanted to be the strongest sorcerer ever. And he went about some pretty bad ways of achieving his goal. Now, before I get into what happened on one particular night to Loftur, I've got to say that this evilest man in the Book of Power, he was known to be a shapeshifter. He would take on the form of a wolf, of beasts, and he had spells for that as well. So Loftur, as I mentioned, was going to university, and he started studying magic, and he became obsessed with it. He committed crimes. He even committed murder, and he terrorized his fellow students, and he decided that he came up with a plan to get his hands on this Book of Power, which was buried with this bishop 200 years earlier, this bishop who became this evil sorcerer. So he came up with a plan, and he terrorized one of his fellow students and forced him to help him with his plan. So one dark night they went to the church, and the student that was terrorized began ringing bells, and Loftur began reciting spells, dark spells, that would bring these bishops back to life. Back to some sort of life, back to a presence anyway. So the student was ringing bells, and it was a dark night, and Loftur was reciting these spells over and over and over again. And one by one, these dead bishops began to appear in their ghostly form. And the student was terrified, but he kept ringing the bells. And Loftur kept reciting the spells and kept reciting the spells until finally this evil bishop, this evil sorcerer, he appeared as well. And in his hands, he held the Book of Power. And by this point, the student was becoming more and more terrorized. But when he saw this big, bad, evil dude, he had enough. He stopped ringing the bells, and one by one, the dead bishops began to disappear until finally there was only the evilest man, the evil sorcerer, left, and he taunted Loftur with his Book of Power, and he swore he would never get his hands on it. And then he disappeared too. But the story doesn't end there. Sometime later, Loftur was on a boat, either on a lake or it might have been the sea, depending on which account you read. He was on this body of water, and out from the depths, a hairy hand appeared and grabbed hold of Loftur and pulled him under to his watery death. And that's where my inspiration for my character of Loft came about. But in my story, it goes on a little bit more. You can find out more about this book and others that I've written on my website, anitadaher.com. Thanks, and enjoy stories in whatever form you can find them.